Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. Dr. Lopkin can't can't overlook the what 10,000 pound elephant in the room.
Yeah, impeachment is dominating the headlines right now.
Without any question. And going to the Senate, I would like your initial reaction, and then I will comment.
Well, what's happened so far is just they've defined the rules of what this trial is going to be. And I find it absolutely hysterical that the Democrats are yelling that the Senate is trying to rush through this when the House specifically said they were rushing through it. They couldn't be bothered going to court and doing things with the proper procedure. They had to rush things. So now that the Senate is pushing through, as quickly as possible, now they're complaining about it.
I think what they really want to do, the strategy, I believe, is they know what they did was incomplete, half-baked, and not a great job, okay? So they want to throw all the responsibility onto the Senate. Am I not correct?
That's absolutely right. And the fact of the matter is, it's not the Senate's job to do this. This was the House's job.
I get that, but how about public perception? It looks like that's what they're going for. They're calling for votes. So, Collins and other, let's say, susceptible or vulnerable senators are on record by saying we don't want any more, witnesses, blah, blah. And so far, the Republicans have been lockstep and united. So my question is, the public perception has this transfer, because I thought the impeachment hearing in Congress was a disaster for the Democrats. Have they gained any traction so far?
They have gained traction, but only among the party loyalists. They've energized a percentage of the Democratic base, but they're not convincing anybody in the center. They're not convincing anybody on the fringes of the Democratic Party. If you are a diehard leftist, you're lockstep in. If you're actually a centrist and you're going, well, wait a minute, they didn't follow the rules, they haven't impressed you.
Okay, well, that's the key, because the diehard's the diehard. That's not going to do a damn thing. So you're saying it really hasn't.
It really hasn't. Cause. And you see this in the polls, because the only poll that has shown an increase in people wanting to impeach Trump was the CNN poll. And we know where CNN falls on this. Rasmussen, the majority of people don't want him impeached. Gallup, the majority of people don't want him impeached. Any of the polling organizations that at least try to stay neutral, I mean, they don't do a great job of it because of their methodology, but that's not because of their motive. But any of the polls that are essentially trying to stay neutral still have Trump gaining in popularity.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so you think it has failed?
It really has. And I think part of it is, at this point, it's just become such a farce. I have spoken to so many Democrats who at this point assume that Trump is going to be found not guilty and not taken out of office. And they're also assuming that he's going to win a second term. They're just resigned to that already.
Interesting.
And again, these are, to be fair, these are much more centrist Democrats. These are not the left wing of the party. And it really is a shame what's going on, because
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Within the Democratic Party, there has become such a split between the party. I don't know how I should phrase this. The party elders, let's put it that way, that are lockstep trying to get Biden to get the nomination. And then you have the leftist wackos who are trying to get Bernie or Warren to get the nomination. And unfortunately, they actually have a viable candidate that could beat Trump, and neither of these factions will support her.
Klobuchar?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes, that's true. I think one thing I thought about this a lot, Dr. Lopkin, and I believe it's a fallacy, so-called moderate Democrats. I think you look at even Biden. Okay, what are you supposed to be moderate? Whatever. Um, he his really bad strategy, but he's flip flopped on everything. I don't know, like people in the oil industry could be arrested. Really. Definitely left of center to uber left of center. I think my point is that I believe the so-called there is no such thing as moderate Democrat. Look at Pelosi. I know she was always liberal, but she went ahead with an impeachment. She knew it wasn't the right thing because the inmates have taken over the asylum.
The inmates have taken over the asylum, but there are still moderate Democrats. What we're seeing with the Democratic Party now, especially with Biden and Pelosi, where they shift over to the left, is because this is who comes out in the primaries. You're seeing the same thing with Biden that you saw when McCain ran, and he shifted to the right to be able to win the Republican primary.
Okay, I agree. That's always been true, but the Democratic Party, Green New Deal, other things, global warming, we're going to die in 5 years.
Right, but you'll notice that none of that. Right, but remember, even though the Democrats have the majority in the House, and they could have passed all sorts of ridiculous things, they haven't, because the left wing of the party, while they control the primary, they don't actually control the House. There are still moderate Democrats. These are the people who are trying to minimize the effect of AOC and the squad. I mean, granted, they're not doing a great job, but there is still a moderate wing of the Democratic Party that is trying to take the party back.
It is fading fast, my friend. So it's a kind of, I know it's very early. It's the first real day. Here's what I think, and I want your comment. Obviously, I think, yes, the Democrats gained some ground just because now it's, more attention on it. They had a chance to air Trump's dirty laundry. I don't think the call was a perfect call, quite frankly. I'm sorry. I just don't think it was. It was ill-advised. It was stupid, but it's not impeachable. And I think they gained a little bit. I think as this goes on further and there's cross-examination, I think they're scared to death, and I think it's true. They spiral down once again. What do you think?
They are spiraling down because, again, the House had the responsibility of putting the case together and prove their case. And there was a Democratic congressperson that last week made the comment that, well, during the investigation, Trump had the opportunity to prove his innocence. Well, guess what? The United States doesn't work that way. You don't have to prove your innocence. It's incumbent upon the system to prove guilt. And that's the problem with the Democrats' case. They did not prove guilt. They just didn't allow Trump to prove his innocence. Now, even if the 4 Republican senators vote that, yes, they want witnesses, that they want to see more evidence, those 4 have very limited powers because, yes, in a procedural vote, those 4 are enough to switch it. For the actual impeachment, though, they need more votes than that, and they're not going to get them.
I don't think they'll even flip the 4, to be honest with you.
I don't think they will. Maybe 1, possibly 2. I don't think all 4.
So in the end, we have Trump, and we've been doing this podcast for a while now, Carnivore Bites, and we talked about Trump's chances of re-election. We talked about the economy. God, I don't know, time flies. 3 months ago, who knows? I was a little skeptical, thought that the economy could be headed for a recession. I think that it's not going to happen. So let's just, and what do you think? So I don't think that's happening. You agree? It's not going to happen, and you agree with that, correct?
Yeah, no, at this point, there's no economist that thinks we're heading into a recession. The earliest anybody is predicting a possibility of recession is now 2021. And
Okay,
quite
so
frankly, that keeps getting pushed off because the economy keeps doing better than people expect.
agreed. And I'm one of those on that side. I did really think it was headed for a recession, not a major one, but a minor one, possibly before the election. Um, so you have Trump overseas now talking about the economy. I want you to first of all, let's talk about his performance there, Dr. Lopkin.
His performance at Davos has been fantastic. He actually gave on Monday what was probably the most presidential speech of his life. He has come out looking like a leader, primarily because he did not go off script and he stuck to what was on the teleprompter.
Which is always good.
Yeah, people have criticized him because he's getting into a little bit of a pissing match with and I forget her name, the 17-year-old kid who's pushing about climate change.
Yes.
But she actually lost a lot. Greta lost a lot of credibility when she made her speech talking about how planting trees was not enough, because that's what Trump was talking about, was becoming part of this alliance who is dedicated to planting more trees. The fact of the matter is there are numerous scientific studies, not political studies. These are actual scientists who have put these together, who have said, yes, if we keep planting more and more trees, that will get us out of this problem.
Yeah, I think she's young, empathetic, sympathetic figure, but the more she talks, the more she turns people off. It really boils down to this, Dr. Lopkin. The economy is very strong. It's going to continue to get strong. I actually believe, and I want your comment in this, that I have to say, usually it's said, but it's really not true. I believe as this thing goes on, there's going to be a shortage of workers if there's not already.
Oh, there's already a shortage of workers. Currently, the United States has more empty jobs than they do workers to fill them. The big problem that our economy is facing right now, one is the distribution of jobs. There are certain geographic areas that just never recovered from the Great Recession. Connecticut is an example, Baltimore is an example, California is an example. And the other problem is that jobs now require different skill sets, and we're having problems finding the people with those skills. We're talking about programmers. There's a lot less need for unskilled workers and more need for specialized manufacturing skills.
Okay, so let's talk about, I know a little bit about specialized manufacturing. In fact, even older workers can be retrained in specialized, and actually there's such a demand, they're good.
Oh yeah, if you are retrained, and there are now programs at community colleges, so students can take these at very little cost to get trained in these specialized skills, and they can walk out of a community college with an associate's degree and a job paying high five figures. And if you put in a little overtime, you can actually be hitting six figures already.
I have to be honest with you. We've gone a little bit on a side, but it's still very interesting and important. We've talked about this at other occasions. Some of these programs and opportunities, you really scratch your head about a 4-year degree. I mean, if I was young, I don't know, Dr. Lopkin. What do I really want to do? Become a marketing executive at the whim of anyone that says, I don't like the way you part your hair, fired, downturn, downsizing, ageism, all that stuff? Or do I want to get into, in smart manufacturing, and essentially, if I don't shoot someone, I got a job for life? I mean, if you're a 4-year school, I don't know what you're selling.
You're actually seeing that now. Enrollment at four-year schools, especially private institutions, is dropping. Enrollment at community colleges is up, and enrollment at trade schools are up. People who are learning to be plumbers, carpenters, electricians. This is up because these are skills that are always in demand. So
Yes, and I think actually, let me interject something. I think some young people, millennials plus, really millennials plus, have learned from the Great Recession when their fathers, their mothers were highfalutin, whatever you want to call it, marketing directors, managing directors, and fired. And they're thinking, wait a second. And one thing I did learn in life, it's better to make $80,000 over 40 years than go 120 0, 180 0. Do you
right.
agree or not?
Yes.
No, it's
Absolutely.
true. It sounds like a
Absolutely.
simplistic analysis, but it's actually, the tortoise beats the hare in many occasions, and also the job opportunity. So I think it's a sidetrack, but an interesting one. So really, the quintessential question, Dr. Lopkin, is who wins this battle: impeachment and investigations, or Trump's economy? That's really what it boils down to. That's the end.
A few months ago, even I'd say a year, 2 years ago, people would have said I was crazy for saying this. But at this point, it has gone back to traditional values. It is, to quote Bill Clinton, it's the economy, stupid.
Is it still the economy, stupid, my friend? Because 20 years ago, I would say no doubt. I don't know the way.
It is again. The effect of the Obama administration, the further we get away from it, the more successful the economy comes, the more people realize, oh, that was really a bad idea. And you have these people on the left who are yelling about income inequality, which is a legitimate problem, but they don't have an answer to solve it. But what they fail to realize is they always complain about the number of billionaires that capitalism creates. Well, here's a statistic I heard the other day that is very important to remember. For every billionaire that capitalism creates, 250,000 people have been lifted out of poverty.
Oh, there's no question about that. And I actually believe this whole billionaire socialist kind of thing is all due to Obama and the Great Recession, really centered on more millennials. And rightfully so. If you grew up during the Great Recession, Occupy Wall Street, capitalism is broke. I mean, we were essentially in a depression. I mean, it wasn't funny. So I can understand it, but I think that ship is leaving the port. I actually think, and I want your comment, I think it's not 100% the economy stupid as it was in 1990. I just don't believe 92. I don't believe that. I think social justice warriors have taken a foothold, especially for younger audience. But I do think it's still the economy, not like it was, but it's still important.
No, it's not as strong a call as it was during the Clinton years.
No,
but
I do think overall.
What you're seeing is with the social justice warriors, yes, the millennials are big into that. However, now, where in 2016 you didn't have this, you have Gen Z as a factor. This is the generation following the millennials. In 2016, they were not old enough to vote. Now they are. And Gen Z is not social justice warriors. Gen Z is, can I get a job? Oh, the economy is booming. They don't like what the millennials have been doing.
Isn't it interesting though that isn't the millennials kind of a bust generation? I think there'll be an interesting piece for sociologists and historical archaeologists, because I think they're interesting. They're a unique.
Well,
grew up under unique situations, recessions, Obama, the internet, the birth of the internet. Very, very fascinating, but I think they're having less and less influence.
Yeah, you know what? They grew up under unique circumstances, but they're not a unique generation. if you listen to what they talk about, if you listen to the issues that they care about, and if you look at the actions they take, they are no different from the hippie generation in the 60s.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's a beautiful analysis. I think they're very, very similar under similar circumstances. Believe it or not, the baby boom generation. I do this from demographers I've talked to. Yes, they had tough times getting jobs. You grew up in the,
Yes.
where they came to age in the 70s or late 60s were good, but in the 70s, there wasn't a lot of jobs. That's how Bill Gates and others did what they did. We became entrepreneurs because there was. So yes, very, very similar. So what do you think overall? You think you think Trump can weather the storm?
I think he will weather the storm. Yes. I mean, I
I
think
think
he's going to take some damage, but overall, he's still going to come out on top.
I believe that. Now, on a lighter note, the baseball controversy, I think that's very interesting. It's much more serious than I thought. There could be an asterisk next to or just a removal of the pennant.
Yeah, you're talking about an asterisk next to Houston Astros winning their World Series, an asterisk next to the Boston Red Sox winning their World Series. You've had 3 managers so far lose their jobs. So, yeah, baseball is looking into this. They're really investigating, and they're trying to investigate as fast as possible because at this point, we're only about 20 days from pitchers and catchers reporting for spring training.
And that's what baseball did not need. I thought it was a good World Series. They need all the help they can get in terms of growing the brand, growing the franchise. You don't need this. It's a declining sport, especially for young people, and you don't need this kind of controversy.
Yeah, no, they're doing a lot of things to rebuild the brand, a lot of things to bring new viewers in. This was the last thing they needed.
Agreed. And finally, Derek Jeter, Hall of Famer. I have to say, best shortstop I know of all time.
Yeah, I mean, there was never any doubt he was going to make it into the Hall of Fame. The only thing that surprised people was of the votes, there was one person that actually voted against him. We don't know who that person is, but it was not.
There's always someone to try to make
right. It was not a unanimous vote. Everybody expected it would be. Yeah, as a New Yorker, I have to say, not just for his play on the field, which of course was amazing, but he was a real mensch off the field. He treated fans well. He participated with helping nonprofits. He became part of New York. He really deserved the Hall of Fame spot.
Agreed, 100%, and a great way to end this edition of Carnivore Bites. And some very interesting announcements, if you'd like to share that, Dr. Lopkin. This whole platform is really taking off on CarnivoreRadio.com.
It is. Carnivore Radio has expanded, so now you still have the Carnivore Bites coming out every Wednesday with analysis about current events. Every Monday, you now have the Carnivore News Brief. This is just headlines, what you need to know for the week ahead. No analysis, just straight news, and we encourage our listeners to actually do the investigation, look into the headlines and look behind the headlines and make up your own minds. And then in February, we bring back Carnivore Radio, but we're bringing it back online rather than terrestrial radio. So you will have a chance on Fridays to call in, talk to our guests, and actually be part of the conversation. And that'll be starting in February.
Very excited. We're all looking forward to it. And I think this is going to be an exciting opportunity for everyone. Thank you, Dr. Lopkin.
See you next week.
You've been listening to Carnivore Bites, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch us every week on CarnivoreRadio.com, Exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast Store, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts.